I'm a huge fan of ghost stories and horror. So today, I've got a scary story for all my fellow fans of horror. And this one has been requested so many times I literally lost count. Let me know if I missed your request, but here it is. Our protagonist is named Lucas. Lucas was a photography student, quiet, observant, always curious, someone who tended to get lost in thought, almost to the point where he could seem absent-minded. He had just moved into an old boarding house near his university. The building was strange. Victorian architecture, narrow hallways, and a reputation for being unsettling. He was assigned room 12, a small, sparsely furnished room with peeling wallpaper and creaky floorboards. The other residents kept to themselves, whispering rumors about the place. Lucas wasn't fazed by it. To him, the dilapidated charm was part of its appeal. But there was something else about the place that piqued his curiosity, room 13. The room next door was always locked with a heavy padlock and chains. The landlady, Donna Marta, was firm. No one goes into room 13. It's been closed for years. Lucas didn't ask questions, but he noticed something odd. There was a window in room 13 facing the dark and narrow alley behind the building. And every night at exactly 2 a.m., a faint light flickered behind the heavy curtains. He tried to ignore it. At first, the ticking clock on the wall was louder than any sound coming from next door. But then there was the night when his world shifted on its axis. He was editing photos in the dim glow of his laptop when he heard it. A sound like a sigh, a breath, a whisper, coming from the wall that separated his room from room 13. He pressed his ear against it. Nothing. Then 3 knocks, slow, hollow, and that's when he grabbed his camera, a vintage film camera he'd inherited from his grandfather, and stepped into the hallway. Room 13 was locked, as always, but the doorknob was warm. He looked through the keyhole. All he saw was darkness, but something moved, a shadow. Tall, thin, wavering, and as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. The next day, he asked Donna Marta again, "Why is room 13 locked?" She hesitated. There was an incident. Years ago, a student stayed there. He disappeared. Lucas felt a chill crawl up his spine. What happened? No one knows. He was seen entering the room but never came out. The window was open, but the alley was empty. Lucas couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, he set up his camera facing the window of room 13. He loaded the film, winded it once, twice, and tucked the end neatly under the shutter. Then he taped the camera to the window frame with some old packing tape, enough to hold it steady. And he left it there, ready to capture whatever might appear. At 2:00 a.m., the light flickered again. Lucas watched from his bed, hiding between the sheets, heart pounding in his chest. He waited, not daring to move, not daring to breathe. Then, movement. A figure passed behind the curtain. He grabbed his camera and raced into the hallway. The camera was still there, untouched. He fumbled with the film, winding back frantically. The last photo he took before dawn showed a silhouette. Tall, thin, head tilted. He held it up to the fading light. The image barely visible, but clear enough. The room was supposed to be empty. He rushed downstairs to find Donna Marta. "You have to see this," he said, voice shaking. She looked at the photo, her face draining of color. "That's him," she whispered, eyes wide with fear. "The student who vanished." He must have gone through the window, broken the glass from inside. But why? And how could he have vanished without a trace? The questions echoed in Lucas's mind. Determined to find answers, he pored over the old maintenance records of room 13. The documents, brittle with age, revealed a history of problems: broken windows, water damage, scratched walls, and one note stood out among the rest. Window replaced, glass shattered from inside. No signs of forced entry. The date was recent, only a few months old. Had someone already discovered the secret of room 13? Why had they broken the window? Was that the only way to escape this prison? Sleep eluded Lucas that night. Every creak of the old house, every sigh of wind through the cracks in the window pane made him jump. At 2 a.m., he heard it, the knocks again. Slow, deliberate, coming from the wall next to his bed. He opened his door. The hallway was empty, but room 13's door was slightly ajar. It wasn't locked. He hesitated, fear and curiosity battling within him. Then he stepped inside. The room was cold, stale, untouched for years. Cobwebs hung in the corners. Dust lay thick on the furniture, which was covered in grimy sheets. The window, however, was open, revealing the dark expanse of the alley beyond. Lucas walked towards it. He had to know what lay on the other side. As he peered out into the darkness, he realized there was nothing there. Nothing but shadows and the faintest hint of moonlight on the brick wall opposite. He turned around. His blood ran cold. The window was open, yet there was no breeze. In fact, the room was colder than the night air outside. He shivered, wondering what secrets this room held. What entity haunted these four walls? Suddenly, he heard breathing behind him. He whirled around. The curtains in the corner moved slightly. He watched, mesmerized, as a pale, gaunt figure emerged. Its eyes were hollow sockets, staring right at him, and a twisted grin stretched across its face. "Who are you?" Lucas whispered, his voice trembling. The figure shuffled closer, each step creaking the floorboards. "You looked through the window," it rasped, its voice like gravel grinding on bone. "Now, I look through you." Before Lucas could react, the figure lunged. He awoke with a gasp, heart pounding against his ribs. Sunlight streamed through his window, painting stripes across his bed. Had it been a dream? He sat up, rubbing his eyes, trying to shake off the lingering fear. But then he saw it. The camera he had left by the window was on the bed beside him. He remembered. The film. He scrambled for it, eager to find proof of what he had seen, but it was gone. Frantically, he searched the room, tearing up the sheets on his bed, lifting the blankets, even checking under the floorboards, but it was nowhere to be found. Disheartened, he sank onto his bed, defeated. Then he heard a knock, slow, hollow, coming from the wall. He jumped, startled, and then he smiled sheepishly. It was probably just the wind. Right, he told himself, getting up to check the window. But as he did, he noticed something. One of the window panes was slightly loose. Hadn't he fixed that yesterday? Curious, he pushed it open. It creaked ominously, and the air on the other side felt colder than it should. With a mix of apprehension and excitement, he leaned out to peer into the alley. On the other side, the sky was overcast, mirroring the gloomy mood that had settled in his stomach. There was a slight breeze, but it shouldn't have been able to push the window open. He pulled it shut, dismissing it as a trick of the wind. As he turned to leave, he noticed something lying on the windowsill, a tiny piece of paper that hadn't been there before. He picked it up, his fingers brushing against something soft. It was a photograph. He studied it, frowning. It was a picture of him sleeping, taken from the other side of the window. But how? He checked his camera. The film was missing. But when had this photo been taken? Last night. And who was behind the window? Fear constricted his throat. He looked out into the alley again. Nothing. He called out, his voice echoing in the emptiness. There was no reply. Don Amara found Lucas's room empty that evening. The window to room 13 was open. The camera was gone, but on the windowsill lay a fresh roll of film. One picture developed, one picture of Lucas asleep in his bed. And hanging crookedly on the wall was a portrait of Donna Marta, her eyes scratched out.